Factions, stables, groups in professional wrestling are everybody's favorite thing sometimes. And somebody said to me the other day, Simon, what are your 10 favorites? And I was like, that sounds like a list for YouTube. Now, number 10 is going to surprise you. And actually, they weren't in there at first, but I'm going to explain it. Calm down. And it is D-Generation X. Now, listen, D-Generation X was so important to the evolution, which is somewhat ironic, to professional wrestling, especially WWE. And without the likes of them and Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and a bunch of other people, the Attitude Era wouldn't have been launched. Well, really, the Attitude Era was the brainchild of Triple H and Shawn Michaels, and everybody else then sort of interpreted that in their own special way. But there was a lot of dick jokes when WWF was sort of more of a cartoon, and all of a sudden, in the space of about 6 months, it felt way more adult. If you were a young kid like I was, you're like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be watching this, and that made it cooler. But here's the interesting thing. If I did a top 10 list of wrestlers, Triple H would absolutely be in there. But DX weren't for me. I don't even know why. I can't explain it. We've done a whole video on this. Sometimes in the world of sports entertainment, you have your guys and you have people that just go over your head. And for whatever reason, I never got on board with Generation X. Now, the original reason was because they were kind of feuding with the Hart Foundation, and I was a Bret Hart guy, right? And then Shawn Michaels moved on to take on Steve Austin. I was a Steve Austin guy. So by the time they had become Triple H, the New Age Outlaws, and X-Pac and China, well, China was already there, I don't know, I'd already decided that no, I can't possibly. And they feud with the Nation. I haven't got the Nation on here, but I kind of leaned more towards the Nation than DX. But when I was kind of going to the top 10, especially because you're going to get mad at my number 9, I was like, just through historical purposes, I think D-Generation X has to be on most of these lists. But yeah, it's the beautiful thing of wrestling. I said this on a video the other day. Somebody sent me a message on Twitter saying, Simon, I just don't understand Cody Rhodes. I don't get it. It's the best thing ever about wrestling. Like, this is the worst thing I'll ever say, but I've admitted it before. There was like a year period where I didn't understand Eddie Guerrero. And then it clicked, and I was like, Simon, you're the worst professional wrestling fan. And now I think he's one of the best wrestlers of all time. But this is what can happen. And how many times have you gone back to a different period in wrestling going, why didn't I understand this individual? They were amazing. So, of course, DX were important. Of course, DX changed the game, but they just weren't my guys. And I don't even know why, but you still have to give them their love, because can you imagine where we'd be today without what they did? Some of it was super controversial, and we should not be doing it now, but it also set in motion a brand new wave of professional wrestling. I regret saying it like that. Now, number 9 has recency bias written all over it, right? But I sat there and I thought, this is my list. What groups have brought me the most entertainment over the last 25 years, whatever the flub it's been? And I was like, you know what? Not the first iteration, which was borderline terrible, but in terms of part 2, I got to give it up for the Judgment Day. Because honestly, it did so many things that I loved. One, it turned Rhea Ripley into a superstar. And I can't even remember what I thought about Rhea Ripley before all of this, but now I know she rules. It absolutely sold me on Damian Priest, who I'd always enjoyed as Punishment Martinez, but he found his sea legs on the main roster thanks to the Judgment Day. Dominic Mysterio did the same. It was through the Judgment Day, because let's not forget, he turned on Daddy Ray to join the Day of Judgment because of Rhea Ripley. And that whole thing was fantastic. And every single thing they did with R-Truth was laugh out loud funny. It was the night after WrestleMania, whatever it was, when you had Rhea with a belt, you had Damian with a belt, and then R-Truth pops up with his tag team title. One of my favorite moments in recent memory. It made me laugh so much, and it made me happy. What is the point of wrestling, right? It's to make you happy. It's to make you smile. So they were basically the perfect blend of being serious, because they had people that won championships, and they had mega heels, but also ensuring there was dumb sports entertainment in there as well. And you need the people, and you need the personalities to pull that off. And Jamie Madonna even used this as sort of like a launching off point into everything else. I haven't mentioned Finn Balor, because Finn Balor to me has been goated for a long old time, but he totally rocked in this group as well. But Finn Balor always rocks. Finn Balor is just an underrated gem. But all of them together were so damn good, and we are carrying it on now. We're now doing the same for Roxanne Perez. Liv Morgan's going to weigh in. She's going to come back as a babyface. Raquel Rodriguez has also benefited. So in terms of a tool to get people on the main roster, to ensure they're over, to ensure they have a connection, to get them heel, then turn them babyface. Rhea Ripley, massive babyface. Damian Priest, massive babyface. I think Judgment Day are not only entertaining, but also a great example of how a wrestling stable should work. You don't just do it because ha, funny. You do it because it can open doors for the people you want to walk through them. And Cody Rhodes said this on a podcast the other day. He was like, man, I fought the Judgment Day for like 6 months in a row, which he did. And it did get a bit too laborious. At some Raws, you were like, is this a copy and paste job? But now we're past all that. So many people benefited thanks to the Judgment Day. I think they're great. And I wasn't going to put them on here because, oh man, it's too recent. Screw being recent. Even if I'm wrong, right here in July 2025, my brain and my body and my willpower wanted to put them on this list, and they deserve a shout out. Not everything has to be from 20, 30 years ago. People are doing GOAT stuff right now. I think the Judgment Day is right up there. And even in the most recent iteration, Finn Balor is so damn funny. as this troll. He does not get enough love, ever. And one day he's going to be retired, and we're going to look back and go, damn it, we did not praise Finn enough. Number 8, we get a little bit more basic here, I suppose, but once again, the impact they had, it's the Bullet Club. Now, your instant response will be, well, which version, Simon? I don't know. There's so many of them, but it actually ties into what Finn Balor did out in New Japan, of course. He was like the OG of all of this. But when AJ Styles joined New Japan, that was fascinating as well. Everything they did with the Young Bucks and Cody and Kenny Omega, like, there were so many different versions, but every single one kept me interested in basically wrestling that was happening overseas, mostly in Ring of Honor, but mostly in New Japan. And I mean, I'm kind of going out of left field here because I can't promise you for sure, but I'm 99% sure it was the Bullet Club where one day I woke up, I was like, man, I've got to check out more professional wrestling. I've kind of fallen into a lane here and it's getting a little bit boring. And if anyone can do that, I think you have to give them a shout out. They changed the merch game. And again, it taught me and teach me about New Japan because I watched New Japan before, but it just drew me in, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I enjoyed all of this. Like when Finn Balor was doing it, kind of felt like Invaders, which of course was the original point. AJ Styles taking over led to some of the best AJ Styles matches you'd ever seen, which ultimately got him a contract in WWE. And then when we had to shift again and we put the Young Bucks in their place, and again Cody and Kenny Omega, and there was so many people in at that time, it was just so much fun. It was so entertaining. It was breaking the fourth wall. It was very meta, which again other groups on this list also did during their time. And the fact they were calling stuff back to like the NWO and the Too Sweet and all of it, they felt like fans that just so happened to find themselves in superstars positions and they were going to run wild. And I don't buy a lot of wrestling merchandise for no real reason. I just don't. I bought a lot of Bullet Club stuff because I thought it was cool. And if anybody can kind of give you that impression, they must have been doing something right. And then look what we jumped off to from here. I mean, the Bullet Club is essentially still alive, but not really in the same guise that it was. But we just talked about the metaphor of opening doors. This opened every single door, including the forbidden door in many ways, because would you have AEW without the Bullet Club? I very much doubt it. So awesome, excellent at the time, kind of groundbreaking, but also they didn't give a flub. And I think there is a massive positive to that, and you know who's going to come up on this list eventually. I won't say the name just for fun, but that was their whole MO. We don't give a crap, man, and we're going to be super cool. And the Bullet Club didn't necessarily always come across that way. In fact, the later iterations could actually be quite nerdy, but that worked as well, because everybody forgets this. Do you know what the best thing in the world is? Being a massive nerd. Number 7 is The Shield. I don't think this one is that surprising because The Shield, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins were brought into this earth to basically take over the industry. That was half storyline, it was half what WWE wanted to do. They wanted to create new stars. Jon Moxley is about to main event All In, which would be one of the biggest shows ever to happen in North America in terms of gates. People like to yell about the fan sizes, but 20,000 fans for anything is pretty damn good. Roman Reigns is the guy to the point he can now show up twice a year, and that's perfectly fine because he's earned that contract. And Seth Rollins, I mean, you can't say enough good stuff about that guy, the glue that held the WWE main event scene together for the last 6 years. And it all came from this group that came in originally, helped CM Punk defeat Ryback, which seems totally nuts. Was it 2014 or was it 2012? No, 2014 is when they broke up, so it must be 2012. It's been 13 years since The Shield, 12 years, no, 13 years, oh my gosh, since The Shield. That's terrifying. Dig my grave right now. But I'm probably wrong here, and I'm exaggerating, but it felt like at the time especially, finally WWE was doing stuff right again, like no Nexus nonsense, no other groups I'm not thinking about nonsense. We stuck with it, and there was that bit in the middle where apparently they annoyed some people and they had to go through the ringer, which was stupid. But ultimately, I mean, the Seth Rollins heel turn when he did that and joined the Authority, that blew people's brains because they were such a unit, but they achieved their goal. And even though Dean Ambrose was presented as a bit of a goofy guy, he still became WWE champion. Obviously, Roman Reigns, obviously they had that Money in the Bank pay-per-view event, whichever one it was, where they all switched it around. But I remember how cool it was when they first debuted, not the turtlenecks, but they got rid of them pretty damn soon. But it was the edgiest, not Adam Copeland, he went to AEW, thing that they'd done in a while. And they got to work with big stars pretty much right out the gate, and they got to beat big stars. And there was that kind of idea that they were going to team themselves with CM Punk, but then they were just a renegade group, which was way better. But everybody benefited, which goes back to what we talked about the Judgment Day. But they were just awesome, and they felt fresh. And I can't remember if I was watching NXT or FCW at the time. I probably wasn't, but I was aware of these dudes. And everybody, I think he'll tell you it as well. Roman Reigns was the quote-unquote greenest, so Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins were there to kind of help get him through it. And of course, it led to all the nonsense with Roman Reigns. But do not forget, before the Shield had broken up, maybe it was the 2014 Royal Rumble, because obviously 2015, 2016 are nightmares. Roman Reigns gets towards the very end, people are cheering that man. That wasn't by accident, it was because the Shield were absolutely badass. And then, yeah, it all kind of fell apart from there. But it's exactly how you should debut somebody, even if they don't have quote-unquote star power from an audience knowing who they are point of view. We went all in, And I think it was a massive success. And I think somebody could do it again now. And I'm probably not right, but in terms of trios groups, we probably shut them up even higher. And number 6 is Evolution. People are like, you preferred Evolution to D-Generation X? I did. I don't know why. I just did. I mean, I thought they were awesome at first because I love the concept. You have a guy who's in the present, Triple H. You had the legendary figure in Ric Flair. And then you had your 2 young guns, one of who was massive and was like your warrior class that was Batista. And the other one would be like, what, your technician in Randy Orton? I don't know what you call it, the blue chipper. Now, we rushed the Randy Orton thing. That's the only faux pas I ever had. Like, I think they realized how good Randy Orton was. They tried to make him a babyface at SummerSlam. Then it got rejected. And then Triple H was here. And that's when they actually slowed stuff down with Triple H Batista. And while that culmination of the match at WrestleMania 21 is so good. But again, just the idea was brilliant. Like, you could have told someone, explained this to somebody in a minute, and it massively benefited Batista and Randy Orton, who were able to not only drive with these two when they're going from show to show, but on television, even if you're a dumbass fan, you'd be like, oh man, I get this. I totally understand what we're doing here. We should keep an eye on these guys. It's something that we could do again now, and maybe we are, and I'm not thinking about it. I guess it's what Seth Rollins is doing, really. That is the brand new Evolution concept, but I just remember loving them. And yes, sometimes, which is a worry of what WWE is doing right now, there was too much distraction, there was too much interference, there was too much confusion. And it massively helped that Ric Flair was still working. Again, he had that WrestleMania match when it was Mick Foley and The Rock versus all 3 of those guys. Or was it just Flair and Batista? I can't remember now. I think it was all 3. I think Randy Orton was in that as well. But the fact that Ric Flair could do that helped massively, and Paul Heyman isn't going to do it. But it was just a great window into the past, and a great window, obviously, to what Triple H was doing, who was the guy, whether you liked it or not. And the way that Batista and Randy Orton just rose through the ranks, it's my kind of stuff, man. A lot of it could be nostalgia. Maybe if I went back now and watched the entire run, I'd be like, it wasn't as good as I thought. But as soon as they popped it into my brain, I was like, well, they're getting pushed up the list a little bit, because that's how much I like them. Number 5, I'm not even calling it recency bias, because they kicked off in 2020. That's half a decade ago, which is forever. I have to have the Bloodline on here because they are one of the main reasons WWE TV was so damn great from really 2022 onwards. I mean, the pandemic always takes something away. But as soon as Sami Zayn was in there and you were doing all these skits on television, it's not even about the matches. The Bloodline were very much a moments group. So Sami Zayn obviously turning on Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble, Jey Uso saying, if you're out, I'm out too, and super kicking Roman Reigns. Just so many cool bits. And I would probably say it ended with Cody Rhodes beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40, although, it kind of didn't as well. But they did. It was a storyline that WWE stuck with. Finally, we also took a group and made them into something, which is something WWE did not do very well in the old variation of them. And you wanted to see what was going to happen week to week. And the ratings showed you that as well. We had the trial of Sami Zayn, and we had all these cool things that we lent into. And I just love them. And you can argue it's gone on too long now, because obviously so is the Currys of the Bloodline 2.0. I'm certainly not tired of it. I'm glad that certain people have gone off in their different directions. But there is a sort of after effect to all of this, seeing how it helped Sami Zayn, seeing how it helped Jey Uso, seeing how it helped Jimmy Uso. If I had told you in 2020 that Usos would be in the position they are now, nobody would have believed it. They were tag team wrestlers, and that was it. In 2016, people couldn't even tell them apart, which is another thing they tied into the Bloodline. I don't think this is recency bias. I really did enjoy it. And I remember there was that red hot time where you just had to watch SmackDown because you wanted to know. You wanted to see what was going to happen. There was the tag team match between Solo and Roman and the Usos that happened in Money in the Bank over in the UK. Of course, you mentioned Solo Sikoa when he joined in as well. Now, he's the man. I love that guy. They're brilliant. So many good moments that I'll go back and watch. So many pops and Kevin Owens being involved. It's just excellent stuff. Then Cody Rhodes throwing his hat in there too. Even the WrestleMania 39 decision for Roman Reigns to win actually is fine when you do go back on it. They're in at number 5. They could probably be higher should you so wish. If you told me they were your favorite group ever, I would know when you started watching wrestling, and I wouldn't begrudge you it at all. Number 4, maybe very personal to me, but I don't think they get the credit they deserve, is the flipping New Day. Now, the New Day have been doing their thing for over 10 years, and I have never tired of them. Even when they get crappy booking, which I actually argue they have had in 2025, they still entertain me. They still make me laugh. The most recent example I always go back to is when JD McDonough did that moonsault and Xavier Woods freaked out thinking he was going to hurt his ribs again. Oh my gosh. Or when the Viking Raiders are in there and they're insulting them for being overweight, but you could tell they cleared it with them first. They're just so damn funny. The heel turn at the end of 2024, one of the best heel turns of all time. I'll die on that hill. Awfully followed up on, but at the time, brilliant. And before Big E did get injured and you had that trio, my gosh, they're another one. I wanted to see them every single week. And when Kofi Kingston won that match at WrestleMania. Oh my gosh, I cried. When Xavier Woods won the King of the Ring, something you wanted, like, this is brilliant. When Big E cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase to become the champion, that was treated terribly too. Some of the worst booking ever afterwards. But the moments that we got, and the fact that they were brought in as baby faces, even though they knew it was gonna fail, eventually convinced Vince McMahon to turn them heel, then became so funny they became baby faces anyway. Don't forget stuff like the trombone, or coming out of a damn Bootio cereal box. It's almost sort of been written into law now, so we forget, but it was very entertaining. It was very fun. It was very amusing, and I totally loved it. And they're on my GOAT list when it comes to modern day groups. They have never, ever, ever made me go, oh, I don't want to see this anymore. I just think they're brilliant. I'm just going to use the word again, because why try and be smart here? They are super entertaining individuals, and I watch pro wrestling to have fun. The only real sadness is that Big E did have that horrible injury, but then you hear him talk now, and he is healthy, and he can live a normal life, way more important than professional wrestling. And what did they do as a group? They sat down and gone, you know what, Big, we can probably use this to do something totally innovative that nobody would expect on TV, and they did. So yes, I love the New Day. They are GOATs as far as I'm concerned, and they just get it, right? They just do. Remember when Kofi Kingston first turned heel? Kofi doesn't know how to be a heel. The man was absolutely hilarious, and man, he just crapped on people. All that stuff he did with his mum as well after they turned heel. I love all of them. They are heroes. They are mountains of men, and I will appreciate them forever. Number 3 is the obvious one. It's the Four Horsemen. I did put them at number 1. I was like, that's boring, so I'm just going to move them around. I mean, you either know or you don't know, and if you don't know, just go and watch anything with the Four Horsemen. I mean, it comes from a time in wrestling when things were a bit grittier. Go watch the Four Horsemen where they turn on Dusty Rhodes in that cage and whip his ass and lock the door. I think there were riots after that show. I mean, you can look into the crowd and see how serious they're taking it. And while I understand it's a different era, you have to have a certain something to you to be able to incite that. They were just so damn real. They were so brutal. Always had Ric Flair as a champion and Arn Anderson doing his thing. And even some of the iterations we had, like when Barry Windham joined. Well, Barry Windham's awesome. I mean, even people like Lex Luger get in there, Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennigan. They weren't the best versions, but there was never, even when Mongo was in it, right? The Four Horsemen name and the fact you still had various makeups of the OG group meant that they just worked. And also, this is the most important thing, you would not have any groups on this list. I'm just double checking as I say that. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't have any groups on this list without the Four Horsemen. I think probably they are the template that we still use. They were bad guys, but they had, I don't want to say they were cool because they got booed a lot, but they sort of carried themselves as superstars. And that made them cool, right? You wanted to be a Ric Flair. You wanted to be as hard as Arn Anderson or Ole Anderson or whatever, whichever person sort of floated your boat the most. And Barry Windham as well. Barry Windham was huge. And you watch him work, it's like, how the hell is he so smooth? It didn't make any sense. So you just pick anything. Pick any promo they've done. Pick any match they were in. Pick any angle with Dusty Rhodes especially, because that was really, really good. And of course, given that it was in the 80s mostly, the blood and the violence and not necessarily the brutality, because I don't think wrestling was necessarily brutal, but because they wanted to get everything across as kayfabe and what you're seeing is legitimate, it just has this real grittiness to it that will pull you in. So why they should be number 1 really is because they are the absolute GOATs and they created all of this. They opened the door, as I use that term again, for everybody else to walk through. So just go watch them today. Don't listen to me ramble on. The proof is in the pudding. Thankfully, it's all over YouTube, so you can check it out right now. Number 2 is very special to me, and they were number 1 at some point, but I thought, no, I'll change it just for fun. The Hart Foundation, who weren't actually around for that long. I mean, you have the original Hart Foundation. I'm talking more about the one that sort of existed in 1996 and 1997, which ultimately got broken up because of the death of Brian Pillman. It's a horrible story. And then, obviously, the Screwjob. The Screwjob when Bret Hart went to WCW, and then Jim Anvil, the Neidhart. Jim Anvil, the Neidhart was not his name. Jimmy Anvil, Neidhart, and the British Bulldog kind of go to WCW, and their own Hart is stuck in WWE, where you know what happens there. It is a real tragic ending to what happened to the Hart Foundation. But if you are talking about 1997, which is when my fandom truly peaked, because I was young enough just to believe everything that I was seeing on screen, my word did I love those guys. I love the leather jackets. I love how they carried themselves. Even when I see the picture now, sometimes Brian Pillman was on crutches, sometimes Bret Hart was on a wheelchair. But these images, I see it into my brain because I just thought they were absolutely badass. And I would argue their peak is probably Canadian Stampede in June, July 1997. I mean, it's so loud, you see the camera moving around. That's how crazy those fans were. And so I suppose this is totally biased to me, like I say, because it's based on my memories, but it's when I loved pro wrestling the most. And when you saw sort of Bret Hart putting his family together, and then they ran off and they did win a bunch of titles, and they did win matches, right? They weren't pushovers at all, and they were feuding with all the other big guys. is just tremendous, man. And I suppose given that Bret Hart would leave after this and WCW treated him like trash, and then obviously all the terrible stuff happened with his health, this was kind of the end of the best part of Bret Hart's career, and it ended with him in the Hart Foundation. Sometimes I go and watch clips. I watch entrances, especially on Monday Night Raws, and they come out to the proper Bret Hart theme, and on this new Hart Foundation stuff, which I can't stand. My gosh, it makes me feel like I'm there again from, 30 years ago, whatever the flub it was. It is top-tier stuff. So I couldn't even sit here and tell you it was because of this, it was because of that. It's just based on that feeling, which has never gone away. Obviously, Bret Hart's a huge reason for that, one of my favorite, he is my favorite wrestler ever. But everybody else just fit in. Like, again, going back to the way they all look, they just had this theme and they all love pink and black because of course they did, and they were just so damn good. We know that Bret was the man. We know Owen Hart was massively underrated back then. Jim Neidhart understood his character. The British Bulldog was an anomaly when it came to the specimens, and Brian Pillman changed the game as well because he convinced everybody he was a nut job, but deep down he knew what he was doing, but also he was a little bit of a nut job. So it was of its time. I don't know whether you'd be able to get away with it now, but good grief, I love them. It's like when you break up with an old partner, but you're never truly over them. I will never truly be over the Hart Foundation. And yes, it means number one is the New World Order. Like I say, when you make these lists, it was two reasons I started watching WCW. Right? I was a WWF guy, and I was one of these weird WWF guys. I don't watch WCW Nitro, which you should grow out of after a certain age and just watch professional wrestling. But when you heard about the NWO, you're like, man, I'm going to have to check this out. And I would do it sneakily. And then you'd watch them, you're like, holy crap, this is the most innovative thing I've ever seen in my life. I didn't think back then when I was like 8 years old, but I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how badass and how cool it was. Plus, you had the Hulk Hogan heel turn. Plus, you had Kevin Nash and Scott Hall as themselves. But you're like, well, that's Razor Ramon and Diesel, but now they're totally different. And the whole WWF invasion angle, which obviously WCW got in trouble for. Well, I didn't care about any of that. It still happened on my television. Even though they did go away from that eventually, I had still seen it. And I had still convinced myself, oh my gosh, this is an invasion. But they invented so damn much. Like, Austin is responsible for this as well, but the black and white merchandise, just with NWO on there, that changed everything, and that sort of helped WCW's bottom line when it came to merchandise. They had none, essentially, before the NWO, but the commercials, the following announcement is paid for by the New World Order. It just, all of it was just so different. And of course, in 1996, bad guys weren't meant to be like, oh man, I'd love to be one of those dudes, but that's what they did. It ruined wrestling in many ways, but in the mid-90s, you just wanted to see what they were going to do. And when it was just those three, and probably Ted DiBiase and Eric Bischoff, because that made sense. You put the $1 Million Man in there so you could understand who was funding them, because why would WCW do this? They're trying to take down the company. And it made sense Eric Bischoff was in there because he was running WCW. You'd basically closed off all the loopholes. You're like, well, that's how they have the power, because they've got the executive in their pocket, and that's how they got the money, because they got a rich dude in there. It was so well thought out. Like, it was just... It got stupid after a while because everybody joined and there was a bunch of plot holes, and we never really had the end of the NWO. Even when we had the red and black and the black and white, we did the finger poke of doom. By that point, it was totally crap. But I would say up until Starrcade 1997, when Sting should have been the guy to beat Hulk Hogan, and that's when the NWO dispersed, or at least we changed them around a bit, it was the most intriguing thing in all of wrestling. And when they were beating up baby faces and spray painting them, they spray painted the belt the NWO. It doesn't make sense now because it feels so lame. It wasn't lame in 1996, especially if you were a kid, especially if they brought you in when you were a WWF guy, because it made you feel like you were doing something wrong. So they arguably are the best group ever. I mean, without the Four Horsemen, you don't get the NWO. So I think it's always clear to caveat that. But they too totally changed the game. And that's why I think DX should actually be higher in this list. But I picked the NWO over Degeneration X in my crazy brain, which makes no sense. But I think the reason they were so badass is because you can go back and do as much historical context watching as you can, but you'll never understand the feeling if you were there. Because most weeks it was just surprise and shock and awe, and then they do all this other nut stuff. Like, I can't believe they're doing this. Like when Kevin Nash lawn darted Rey Mysterio into the whatever it was backstage. You don't get cameras backstage at wrestling shows, but that's what the New World Order did. So when I started having all these memories, I thought I probably do have to put them at number one. I mean, there's questionable beings in it now in terms of who they are as humans, but we're just talking about the wrestling, and they probably are the best group that has ever run this earth. Now, of course, more importantly, who are your favorite groups? You can do it in the comments below. Before you like the video, share the video and subscribe. Click the video on the screen for all my thoughts about stupid pro wrestling. Otherwise, if you'd like to support me more, you can do so at patreon.com/Simon316, where we do a bunch of watch-alongs. They're so damn fun. We'll try and do an NWO match, because why the flub not? GorillaMind.com/Simon if you want to go and use the best supplements ever. And again, I'm sponsored by these guys, but they're awesome. It ships worldwide. Simon316 to say hello on social media. Simon Miller on Cameo. Simon J. Miller on TikTok. Big Cartel and Pro Wrestling Tees for merch merchandise, and now it's time to go and edit some videos, because that's how this works. I appreciate you, my friends. Keep enjoying wrestling. Goodbye.